Okay, well, let me first of all call your meeting to order. And I'm Ann Rarick, Concord Road.
Root Lauer.
Paul McCombs.
Okay,
And we've made this easy.
and we've just learned that Claude is not going to be with us. So we don't have the minutes of the April 11th meeting. And we will need to have somebody take minutes.
Could I vote for Ruth?
A second,
Second.
all those in favor? Great, all right.
So Ruth will
Thank
be
you.
pro tem, but you have to know. It's not going to run 15 minutes after the meeting's over.
No, why not? You're gonna be 10 minutes. to be the vote.
Thank you for doing that, because I'm sitting on, oh, no, please don't make me do it.
I can't write, so I can read my own writing, so.
That's
the
what
problem.
makes it fun.
Ah,
So welcome Carrie, Susan, and Erin, we already know. Okay, good.
Oh my gosh, that's the first thing.
Yep.
How am I going to keep track of online? Would you keep your? Absolutely. Thank
Can we appoint a volunteer to keep minutes?
you.
Can we do that?
No.
Now, no, it's not when she's doing this.
Okay, just checking.
So is there any correspondence or updates that anybody wants to share other than the fact that Claude's not coming?
No more love notes from people.
I wrote something.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's appropriate here.
I think it's good here. Yeah.
Or, you know, appropriate later in the meeting.
I think it's a good lead-in, actually.
And this is not, I'm not trying to give people my directions on how to get to the end. I'm trying to say, there are so many things that we could do, could be doing, that we have to at least talk about, that I thought maybe I would just put it on paper and then we can have something to talk about. Okay?
Find a roadmap.
So the first thing I thought was, we all want to be finished appropriately. But,
And today wouldn't be too soon, but we can't do that.
but we haven't talked about how to finish it. I don't know why you're doing that.
That's people
It's
coming
not
in.
me.
No, it's just there.
Their doorbell.
Oh, it's a doorbell.
Well,
Okay.
Mr. Ferry.
Welcome,
Ferry
Ned,
just-
welcome, Carrie.
He just saw this chair, I think we lost it.
So in any case, we've been saying we would make our report with our recommendations and be done. But there are several ways to be done, as I noted here. We could make our recommendations to the select board. They give us thanks from a grateful nation and dissolve our committee. That's quick and dirty. Or we could go to the selectmen at some time in the future, still to be determined by our workload, and say, these are our recommendations. What do you think? And they say back to us, well, what has the public thought? Have you had a hearing? You should have a hearing. In which case, we have a hearing, we have a comment period. Often that's, a period of a meeting or a month. And we listen to the opinions of the public. And maybe that'll be reflected in an amended report, or, who knows? And then we go back to the selectmen and we say, here it is. And they say, thank you very much, you're dissolved. A third way, and these aren't the only three, I'm sure. The third way is to go to the select board. They thank us, they dissolve us, and then the select board, turns to the personnel board and says, you really should have a hearing on this and find out what the public thinks, and then get back to us. So the personnel board, or some other board that maybe the selectmen want to identify, they listen to the public, they come back and tweak the recommendations, and the selectmen finally say, thank you, I forget, would we approve it would the select board approve it or accept it? I know there's a difference.
I don't know. Well, they can do whatever they want.
In any case, it would be done. Essentially, the report is done and the committee is done when the selectmen have accepted or approved. And they do that once, in their opinion, there is a hearing or not a hearing. So the strongest I can say is, I think we need to have a hearing. Somebody needs to have a hearing, whether it's us or the selectmen, whatever. That was my first thing that I wanted to talk about. May I segue in, or do you want to talk?
Keep going, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, good, all right. So I'm thinking, well, when we make our recommendations, we could make our recommendations that focus only on the 3 documents highlighted in the charge. The charge didn't limit us to those 3 documents, but called out those 3
Yeah.
documents. So we could focus on PPPs, 1985, or bylaw, and bylaw. Okay, that's one way to go with the report. Another way to go is to highlight those 3 documents and add the personnel function, which is also highlighted in the charge. It talks about personnel function, it talks about personnel administration, and so forth. So we could add that component to what our work is. And you see that our conclusion date goes further into the future, depending
Right,
on which we do.
right.
Okay. The third way that I can see, and other people can add things, is to do the above, the documents, the administrative personnel function, and then add the piece that we've mentioned, personnel in the 21st century, where there is a transition or a segue into what the personnel board would be asked to do now versus what they will be asked to do more and more into the future. So again, magic 3 choices, you guys can add other choices. Keep going.
Well, why don't we stop and just have you got any thoughts about any of that so far?
I never thought much about a public hearing, but it might be a good idea, actually. I just never occurred to me we'd do that, but that's not a bad idea. And that way everybody gets to understand what we've been doing and what we've accomplished and what we haven't accomplished.
And are you saying we do that or the select board or the personnel board?
I'm saying a public hearing.
That's why.
He's right there with me.
I think-
Somebody's got to
I
do
think
it.
that might should support a public hearing.
And I agree. I think there should be. People should have questions. I'm not sure we're going to create a document that's going to be inclusive of every thought of every piece of every mile of the road we've gone down.
Mhm.
And if somebody has a question, we can answer those questions. I think this is important enough. However that happens, to have a hearing. Whoever calls it or who's ever in charge of it.
Look, it could be, that's one of the recommendations, that there be a hearing.
Mhm.
Maybe you do it, our group with us, with the select board, hold the hearing.
Or the personnel board.
Yeah. That would be my pick. They still wouldn't be my pick based on what I've been reading.
Yeah, that's a problem, to just, on top of their shoulders, which are now kind of bowed down, they're not at their strongest.
The personnel board.
The
you're talking about.
personnel board, and then to ask them to do something with material that we are presenting them with, rather than, they haven't come along with us on this.
Well, the material may or may not suggest the personnel function is working at an optimum level.
And I think we work, if we have a boss, our boss is the select board.
Right.
It's not the personnel board It's, no offense to Kerry, Kerry, it's not the town manager,
Right,
it's the select board. So
yeah,
I tend to, I go along with and recommend that at some level there be a hearing and it involve the select board.
yeah,
So that's what we work for. Why would we have it separate from them?
yeah,
I
well, we
just-
have
it's-
anybody else involved, yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So we would have to think on, since it's not in the charge.
No,
The charge mentions a report, doesn't it? We need to, somebody somehow needs to introduce the notion to the select board and say, would you like that? Are you assuming that we'll do it? Or,
Right.
we have to get someplace, because it would be very difficult, I think. Be very difficult to come, drop the report on the table and say, see ya.
I agree.
We
And it
need-
goes into the shredder, okay,
Yeah.
right?
We need to at least let them be thinking that should we vote to recommend something like this, that they are responsive to the committee. One of us can't go running up to the front door and say, hey,
No.
or select board. We're assuming this. What we have to do is say, along the lines of, we are willing and anticipate at your grace and favor.
The only thing I might add, and for no particular reason, is any request that we make to the select board and with respect to a hearing, we table it for a week and a half
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
until the
Till time
turnover of the
is over, yeah.
select board.
Yeah.
For no particular reason, no offense to Susan, please don't take it that way, but that we should be discussing it this with the same board that we will be discussing.
Mhm.
agree.
So-
I think we're all agreed on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think it's highly likely that Susan, who's been tracking us for this period of time, will be updating the selectmen that this is something we've discussed.
Yeah.
Because she's been doing that every week.
Right.
Okay.
So how do we do that? Are we in agreement that we're going to do that? And what's the next step to
Well,
contact?
I would be willing to, I'll talk to Terry about what next steps might be required for that.
yeah, see, town meeting's the first, second, whatever.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So once that's over.
Yeah, we're not targeting May, we're targeting the first part of June.
Yeah, but won't there be changes in the select board after? How does that work?
There'll be
Yeah,
a
after
change
town
at
meeting.
noon of the final day of town meeting.
Well,
You shouldn't ask me these things. Bruce.
I know you know. I
But you
know.
could ask Terry, she's
And-
here.
Sure. Well, she won't know. Terry, you won't know who is the new chair.
Right,
Well, we're going to be reorganizing the board and selecting new officers on May the 9th.
Okay,
So new leadership may know.
okay. So whoever is the chair of the select board, I will talk with after May 9th.
Okay,
Yeah, because we're not gonna be ready before June.
Right,
Okay, and then I would assume whoever gets back to us would not be an individual selectman with an individual opinion, but the opinion of
the board, yeah, absolutely.
Good point.
And then do you want to discuss a little bit about the focus?
Which.
Because I have been coming from the angle of, we were only charged with making comments on the bylaws and the PPPs.
and
That's funny, because you're the one who leads with
Well,
21st century.
well, there's a reason why I put that in there.
maybe we
That's a
should,
hoot.
maybe we should learn to
Well,
read the job.
But
description.
it was put there for the context
mhm,
of what we're all dealing with.
right.
So I'm just stating some obvious, but trying to also give some background.
Right. Well, the next piece of my report or my memo is talking about the teamwork that we're doing, and that's what I think you're referring to.
Right.
So each of the five of us are studying the components of the bylaw, the 1985 administrative code, and the personnel policies and procedures. We are not each doing all three of them. We are doing pieces, okay? But, and although we've been doing it for weeks, as you very well know, we have not actually started to put together
Right.
that work. Ann knows her work all the way, very thoroughly. Paul knows his very thoroughly. We haven't tried to mesh
Right.
yours with Ann's, with Bruce, with me, and so, and Claude. So we haven't put it together, and there are many ways to do it. So what we need first in our review, for those who might not realize what our job is, we have to determine whether the three documents are current, operable, or appropriate for the personnel board action. And what we are learning is that in some cases, that document has been replaced, but it hasn't been rescinded. So it's sitting there as a live entity.
Yeah.
Over to Bruce.
What's it been replaced by?
Policies.
No.
No, the actual,
bylaw.
the actual.
Oh, the
bylaw.
bylaws. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It hasn't
so
been replaced.
It hasn't been.
Hasn't
right,
been- It's a document on top of another document.
right,
Yeah.
right.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so we're learning that in some cases, the document is valid, but it's no longer followed for reasons that are not on the record.
Right.
So,
That's all what.
are we going to go down that rabbit hole? Or are we just going to state that it's not being implemented? And then in the other case, the one that I focused on, content is out of date, can be easily refreshed and updated. And, there they go. But we have not yet, those are the three documents that we started with, but we haven't yet had that in-depth discussion on the personnel function being strengthened by segueing into a different way of doing business for the 21st century. And Anne has the magic words, tactical
Going from tactical to strategic.
to strategic.
Mhm.
And nowhere in our charge are those words used. But it would certainly cover the issues that are before us. Some people will say, well, our job is to make sure the personnel board has the tools to do its job. Well, if we're working with today's tools, is that what's going to help do their job? Are they going to be doing classification and comp? Are they doing retention and recruiting? Are they doing?
Are they anticipating layoffs? Are they thinking about anything that's jobs that aren't filled? Are they putting training plans or training resources available to people?
Who gets to identify the jobs that we haven't yet created in this world that a local government needs to be able to accomplish?
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
is
Right.
21st century stuff.
In terms of our focus, if you look at number 3 in the charge, ensure that town's personnel system is efficient, consistent, the bill of done, we're covered there, A through F,
Yep,
you know,
it's not 3 documents, but it is,
it's, all
it's in
that's,
the charge.
yeah, it's in the
Yeah.
charge.
Mhm.
So we have to, and sometime in my head, I'm thinking.
That's good, seriously.
Between now and when we hand this to the select board, we have to amongst ourselves decide what's going into this report. What are the recommendations? And the first thing that I see is we have to sit down and put all of our work together. Right? I don't want to second guess anybody else's work. I want to understand what the issues are and their notion of, does this belong in or is it out? Is it to be fixed? Is it perfectly fine the way it is? We just need to do it. You know, there's
Mhm.
people have that in their heads and I need to hear about it.
I think it's a combination of we need to follow, they need to follow what's here, and then we need to figure out what to fix after they do it. Because basically, you know, the personnel department, whatever committee, have been following this for 10 years, probably more, from when I'm digging through minutes and stuff. And the first thing is, you know, is let's straighten it out and follow this, do what we're supposed to do, and then figure out how to change it to go forward, I would think. But that's probably not a popular viewpoint in some circles.
Well, I think it's
What's
perfectly,
practical.
yeah, it's
It's
perfectly
perfectly practical. It's a-
practical.
Yeah,
I think as the very first piece maybe we could do would be to take the, let's not worry about the 85 document yet. But let's see if we can come to some consensus on the personnel bylaws as currently written, dated 2017. I don't mean right now, but
Mhm.
we take a chance, take a look at it, and maybe we can quickly come to a decision as to what can we, in our recommendation, are we scratching certain things?
Yeah, yeah.
Do we think these things should be management's prerogative? Or whatever.
Yeah.
So that maybe we can shrink it
Mhm.
a little bit by, I mean, I'll just give you a, for example, holidays.
Yeah,
I don't think that's, in my opinion, that should be scratched from the personnel bylaws. I think that's management's prerogative.
Well, see, no, I'll fuss at you because it's management's prerogative, but it's the employee's entitlement to that holiday. So it
Right.
has to, how it's administered doesn't have to be a problem.
That's what I mean. Another example, it's not jumping out at me, but I did quickly flip through and I was just, maybe as a process, we could do that
okay,
and say, in 15 minutes, if
Yeah.
we each
Yeah.
if we go through it at home and say, you know what, this doesn't belong here. Under, you know, in 2022,
I got one, longevity.
yes.
Longevity doesn't have to be in the bylaw. The fact that
Yeah.
the town grants longevity, gotta be somewhere.
Yeah.
But the numbers.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be in the bylaw.
well, and one of the other things about the personnel bylaw that it's not consistent is sometimes they refer to a policy and then sometimes they don't.
Mhm.
And somebody needs to keep that up. I mean, even just referring to what goes with a bylaw. If there's a policy that's been put up to update the bylaw, then that ought to be referred to in the bylaw.
Right.
good point.
Because right now, it's almost the reverse of that.
That's right.
I think it's
It's 180
particularly,
degrees.
That's right.
You look at the personnel, the PPP, it says 1 through 10 or however, and to be honest with you, I've never quite figured it out, but at some level, it refers to.
The hierarchy is being ruled by the policies rather than the bylaws.
Right, yeah, which is confusing.
I think it's hysterical. We have, starting with the bylaw 1 through whatever. And we have 1 and 2 in the PPPs with no content.
Right.
But we have number 1 and we have number 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just ludicrous.
I think Paul is a good idea. Let's go through and come up with a list of thoughts here on this, and what might be changed between the bylaw and handled by the select board.
Maybe we can move this process along efficiently at the next meeting, saying, I vote we get rid of this. Or
But this needs to go out ahead of time, so we get to see everybody's input, so we can discuss it in the meeting. That we have to read it.
Yeah. So, but this,
Huh?
You talking to me?
No, I'm not
Okay.
charging anybody. I'm just
Okay, I
saying in
just-
terms,
I'm
we
just-
need
I just-
to have, yeah.
but I think it's a two-parter, what you're saying, Paul. We can say in and out, right? This is not relevant, or it's too fussy to be in here, or whatever. But whose responsibility is it? Is another piece of the picture. Is it going to be, it's something that's really important to the town and it needs to be here and it's the personnel board's job, or it's the town manager's job, or it's the town meeting's job. I think we have to make sure that that's.
Or the head of human resources.
Or human resources job, yeah. And.
Sure, that makes,
You know, we have to know who's doing it as well as if it gets done.
if it gets tossed from the bylaws and thrown to the
Where's it,
policy.
where's it?
Yeah.
go?
And what, I follow exactly what you're saying, okay.
'Cause we have things that haven't seen the light of day. in forever.
Right. That's right.
So what we're saying is that next time we will have shown each other what we think ought to be part of the bylaws and what should be dropped from the bylaws, and we will discuss and finalize at the meeting.
At least what we're dropping finalized
Okay,
at the meeting. The rest might, I would suggest the rest may be a little more convoluted.
Mhm.
That's why I just suggested, there were 3 things that we can say it's not appropriate, or that doesn't make any sense for it to be in the bylaws,
Right.
and we can toss it.
And then we just don't have to talk about them anyway.
now do we also want to say what should be in the bylaws that is not there,
Sure.
Kurt?
Sure, should we have some?
Because to me, there are a couple of things that might need to be in there.
It's an important point.
Okay.
So we have this document, who's responsible for making sure it gets followed?
What document are you
Oh,
talking
that's
about?
So tricky,
2017 personnel
the
bylaw.
bylaw.
What about it?
Who's responsible?
Who's
for the
responsible
bylaw?
within the town of making sure the town follows it?
The people that put the personnel board in place, the select board.
Okay. Oh, so this works, so that, okay.
Yeah. That's why they're the ones that's chartered us.
Because it would seem like somebody within town government should be responsible for this on a day-to-day basis,
Well,
to know that it's being followed.
No, that's a
And who would that be? Can we dump any more stuff on the town manager? Should it go somewhere else?
well, it's not necessarily one individual. It's,
But someone within the operational side has got to be making sure it gets followed, I would think, I don't know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, if you give this select board, I was on, I wouldn't be paying attention to it, and I'm planning on it.
Well, I think that's a very valid point.
Yeah,
it certainly is.
because we have it floating around here, you know, who wants to touch it? I wouldn't. Just as a practical matter, everybody's got too much to do.
Great question.
so Ruth, did you finish what your
Well,
comments
the
were?
rest of my stuff is where I'd put us right now. Well, if I were starting the report, I would make sure. Well, no, the first thing I did was whine a bit and said, we've had a charter since the 50s, and there's never been any tension between having a strong town manager and a personnel board. They're both noted in the charter. And therefore, I personally didn't think that we needed to look at the actions of 2020 and 2021 town meeting to set the personnel board aside to the extent that that would happen. So then once I finished writing, I said, I thought that whatever we come to in our recommendation and our report, we were going to think of those in terms of concrete, real, practical recommendations. We were not thinking that it was aspirational, that gee, we wish we could do this.
No,
We're not going aspirational,
No.
we're doing real.
Well, we gotta figure out how to do the basic blocking and tackling.
Yes, we
You
do.
know, straight to have all these grandiose thoughts, but
We can't go grandiose until we get the
this working.
nitty gritty done.
get this
Yeah.
working.
And then I said, gee, major responsibility here is the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen needs to fully staff the personnel board. Has to be done in order for them
Yeah.
to get their job done. And then, still meddling, I thought, well, the personnel board needs to meet more often than it currently does. You know, it's very difficult to think in terms of solving the world's problems when they meet so rarely or so close to town meeting after even the hearings are done. And, you know, I'm not trying to walk in their shoes. I'm just saying that if they had a longer lead time to their jobs, their function, it would go more smoothly.
In my memory, the finance committee is we started in September,
yep,
had a ton of meetings and pretty much stopped after town meeting. And Tony did a marvelous job in terms of putting together all the data we needed
Yeah,
to read it, understand it, and go from there.
and he'd have a tutorial every August
All right,
and off he'd go.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't just do it.
And we need that same process.
right, for
Yeah.
this,
that's what
With that-
strategy's all about.
touche.
Let's see what else. I think our report has to include what we've learned from our stakeholders, both the stakeholders who are the, town manager, town moderator, selectmen, personnel board and so forth, the people that were listed in our charge, as well as the employee stakeholders who we heard from in the survey. And we've heard, for instance, that communications is an important issue. Health insurance needs are high concern. Compensation studies and updates are of interest and will affect many, many lives. And that generally the town needs to improve its relations with its employees on behalf of all taxpayers. Those employees do important things for us. We need to make sure that that continues to be done.
Yeah.
But, then I think we need to update and refresh our PPPs. And as we do that, we need to write an entirely new, because none exists, remote work policy. Who knew that we would find ourselves in a pandemic without something like this on hand? But, now that we have the experience, writing that policy should be really easy, right? We have a lot of experience that we didn't have before.
There's a lot of examples of that on I think about halfway through this process, like
Yes, at Lexington's.
Lexington just seems on top of their game
Mhm.
with respect to their website and other functions. That was there months ago.
Yeah.
Right after it started, there was here is the remote work policy.
Yeah.
So there's a lot, what I'm saying is that there are a lot of existing examples
Yeah,
that doesn't seem like it should be an issue at all.
I wouldn't think I should.
Should be able to plagiarize one, should we? I should
Yeah.
say.
That's it.
We should be able to plagiarize someone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not robotic brain surgery, it's a piece of machinery.
The last thing that I had to say has no more merit than anything else, but it was about the bylaw versus policy discussion. I like bylaws because they're orderly, they have a schedule, you can see it coming. If you need to make changes, yes, the downside is you can only do it once a year. On the other, and I admire the fact that policy can change very quickly. But sometimes so quickly, people don't even know that it's ongoing, and that's frustrating for the people who weren't paying attention. So I think, we need to sort out how to take advantage of the flexibility of a policy.
Well, it seemed to me that the policy would have to be approved by the select board. To change the policy as opposed to going to town meeting. I don't know. if that-
Not necessarily, planning board issues don't go to the selectmen and, they just picked that one up because
Yeah,
we're
that's
here.
fine. That's-
But, the policy changes have a protocol. You have to inform people, you have to discuss it, you have to have a comment period. And then, those very same people, like the Board of Health, set the policies for our pandemic in the context of what's going on at the state level and so forth. So I would say that it could just as easily be
The personnel board.
the personnel board, and we have something in our bylaw already that says if you're making changes, you need to alert people, let them know before you make the changes, which is exactly how a policy
Yeah,
would go.
And you don't have to wait for town meeting.
right.
And you don't have to wait, but you do have to alert.
What's the method of alerting?
Maybe you have to work that into,
Okay, I'm just curious.
Just posting it.
Okay,
well, but then, some people have to notify abutters. Well, this isn't an abutter kind of issue, right? Or,
yeah,
they're just, if you're in the floodplain, you have to notify those people that could be affected by it. There are all kinds of things that I'm not expert in those. I just know some of the buzzwords.
Mhm.
And, there are people out there who know what they're doing.
Along the same lines, the question for the chairs or the whole group is, should we start getting even more specific within what our individual assignments are? Like, I cannot get away from, there needs to be a checklist that needs to
You got
go
one?
with, well, I'm offering to,
You're
but
right.
that's a,
You write it up, we'll approve it or tear it out.
Yeah.
I have no
Exactly.
problem with class and comp. I will volunteer to come up with a sample.
I
Yeah,
love
that's-
samples, yes. Yes, you have to write, the protocol for committee charge, But yes, I think I support that notion. This would.
And then we can put it out, and then even if we decide in the final draft of the document, we get a chance to discuss it, because they'll just be my thoughts. It's, when I put out my notes, those are just my thoughts.
That's all right.
But
But then we do something with it.
yes, and I'll refine that
Great.
checklist and as best I can to toss out to everybody.
Mhm.
Maybe that'll put the class and comp piece a little easier
Good.
together, because I think that's an important point.
Yeah,
Do we want to, we're at this point of
Yes,
refining.
if you would be willing to send that to us by next week, so that we'd have a whole week to get this out.
By way of hearing.
but what level of next meeting is in or out, and who is responsible? Does this fit there before that or after that?
Just do it, we'll figure out where it goes.
Yeah.
Well, if I had a sense that we're lean, to back this up,
Mhm.
I think we need to take a vote. It may sound a little silly, but I think we need to say, and because I think we're there, but we should likely do it when there's all 5 members present, that our recommendation is not going to be to dissolve the personnel bylaws. Simply stated,
Well,
I would second that.
that That's,
We're already there. I thought.
you're right, but I think, should we
Yeah.
say,
Oh, I think
that?
it has to be said in words of one syllable.
Yes.
Yeah.
That we are not going to
Dissolve the person.
dissolve a recommendation in no way, shape, or form dissolves the personnel.
Correct, yeah.
I would second that.
I think, well, we can't speak for Claude, but,
Well, we got 4 out of 5.
well, we have had the conversation, okay. We have to wait until Claude's here.
I'm going fishing the next meeting, so
Huh?
I'm going fishing for the next meeting.
So then we're one down.
I'm just pulling your shit.
It's up to you, it's up to you guys, but
I
I think
think we
if-
ought to wait.
You would prefer that we wait until all members are here.
Yep,
I think that's the first thing we should get out of the way,
Good point.
is just, let's,
Yeah,
It
well,
clarifies going forward.
that's not going to happen. Then I feel, okay,
and so the comment, I will have put together a statement. We support the existence of a personnel board.
Hmm. That's not exactly what.
Well,
Paul
you,
said.
that's,
it's
then
effectively,
you need to,
will you add your words to it?
huh?
Until we
Well,
have
I'm
a-
just thinking, do we need the context of when 2020 and 2021?
Context meaning.
What do you mean? I don't understand.
Well, the
I'm not following.
activities of town meeting 20
No,
and
this
21.
is now.
Okay,
Well, what was 2021? Was that the attempt to get rid of the personnel
Yeah.
bylaw?
yeah,
Its history has survived.
okay.
but I think we should get off the, we
Yeah.
should get on the table that we are
This
not
is one of
going
the
to-
recommendations.
We are not, we're gonna recommend that it
That a personnel board continue to
continues
exist
to exist, and then our recommendation.
with bylaws.
Or however-
Policies,
Un-
whatever.
Under the 2027 bylaws.
Well, we can still
Sure, we can amend it. but-
massage that.
Yeah,
but-
we'll start with that as a base.
Okay.
I'm just thinking of things we can check off, get out of the way.
Yep,
Let's get this out of the way, let's write,
And that seems like an important one to even go first.
yes.
Yes, that way we know it's staying. It's just,
Right.
what does it look like when we get done with it?
okay.
Bingo.
And if anybody else has any other things they'd like to put on the agenda for the next meeting, please let us know and we'll do that. So you're going to send out something to Ruth and I by next Thursday,
By way of Aaron,
huh?
by way of Aaron.
How are we doing that? If I want to send something to all the members,
First it comes to Ruth and I, and then we'll send it out to everybody.
But next week is too early because the meeting is in 2 weeks.
I
Right?
want a week, I want some time for people to
Oh,
look at
you
it.
want that, okay, you want to,
it's gonna be fairly simple. It's gonna be a
Right.
checklist with,
Yeah.
this is, if this won't take, this will take an hour for me
Right,
to put together.
okay,
I can do it.
thank you. All right, so you ready to move on? Okay.
I'm sorry for the time.
It's okay,
folks, I
it's fine.
just-
It's good.
No,
My head
I
is
want-
now empty.
I want
Thank
to,
you.
I don't honestly
Yeah,
want to thank you for doing this because it brought it together
yeah, I mean, there's so,
with a roadmap.
yeah, I mean, there's so many moving parts.
Well, we
Yeah.
still have lots of different alternatives, but
Yes,
Right.
We can nail this thing down as a concept.
yeah,
Good place to start.
yeah, everybody take responsibility for that. And maybe we can get the minutes out this coming week so that Claude, who was not here,
knows what we're
Right.
gonna
That we're
do.
doing, yeah.
Okay,
that'd be good.
I would like to say one thing about correspondence, but I just want to put a placeholder in if you want me to do it.
Do it now.
once. Do it now.
Yeah,
The correspondence I am mentioning is the email we got from Kerry regarding the survey. And I have a question, and my question is with regards to the public record. I'm not going there as far as redacted or unredacted. That's not my mission here. I'm asking the question that, I'd like to, if Terry is here.
Yeah, she's on.
My question is,
There she is. She's not Ned Perry, but.
no,
Doesn't even look like it.
No, it's Carrie. She's got her name.
Yeah,
my,
no, she doesn't have a name.
So what's your question?
regarding public records. Regarding having people have to go through your office to get a document that we have, that's already out in the public. It's out. It's been given to me. The unredacted version is a public document. The town is saying this, that's what it is now available for the public.
So your question is what?
My question is, why does somebody have to go through you to get it? I've been asked by a couple of different employees for a copy of it. And in your email, it says, this allows us to properly document and track all requests which are required under Mass General Law. If you could just point out in the Mass General Law where it's required, that would be very helpful to me, because as far as I know, it's not required. And like 20 years as handling the public records, something must have changed since I left. Because if somebody walked into the police station and asked for whatever document, and it was clearly a public record, I had no right to ask them even who they are.
Me too.
As far as documenting it under Mass General laws, it was clearly case law after case law that says you can't do that. I know it's recommended through the Secretary of State's office for the purposes of filing an appeal. I get that. But as far as tracking it and it being under Mass General law, I don't know. I'd like to know where that comes from. And I see no reason at all why I can't hand it out. What precludes me from having a public document?
Carrie, do you want to answer that?
I was just waiting for Paul to stop. I wanted to make sure I heard everything he had to say. So I am not the public records expert, and I'd be happy to set up a time for you to talk to the town clerk who is. I will tell you that in the last, maybe it's 4 years or so, there have been some changes. Each municipality is required to have a records access clerk or records access person who keeps
Officer,
track.
RAO,
Right. Records access officer.
Right.
Exactly, RAO. Who keeps track of public records requests for the purpose of documenting if there is an appeal. I know
But if
we are not
someone's
tracking every single request, but it is much easier, particularly with a document like this, where I could see somebody suggesting they didn't get the document or we didn't comply timely. You don't have to follow that, but out of courtesy, I would ask that you direct people to the town clerk if they don't want to come here, so that we are able to track, to make sure that the record request has been complied with. We get multiple record requests each day, each week. You'd be surprised at the challenges we have. And it's much easier for us to document or to prove that we provided a record if we're able to track the requests.
Oh, I understand that. I do get that. And I understand with an appeal, but there's nothing that precludes me from handing it out. Are you telling me that I can't hand it out?
No, I'm not telling you that you can't hand it out. What I will say is that it is unusual for a non-staff member to respond to a public records request.
So I have a fix for that. And I'm gonna make a motion that the unredacted survey be placed on our website.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
So,
for purposes of clarification, is that's the survey question?
No, that's the whole survey,
It's a
for the moment, the redacted copy should go on the website. That's what we just voted on, for the redacted.
The redacted. I think you voted on the unredacted.
I'm sorry.
And you cannot,
No, the redacted, I apologize. My motion would be that we would replace the redacted entire survey, including the questions and the answers, obviously.
Is it on our website now?
No,
Okay.
nothing.
No, that way, then there's no dispute as to who's handing it out and who, if somebody wants to make an appeal for the unredacted copy, then they would need, I understand, Gary, they'd need your procedure so they could document when they made that request. That I get, but I don't know of anywhere under the Mass General laws that says you have to track everybody that gets a public document.
and so might I ask you to have some discussion about the fact that when you gave this survey to employees and you asked them to complete it, you said that that they could do so anonymously and that it would be confidential. So I'd just like to hear the committee's discussion about sort of the intersection between that statement and making this document available to
I don't think
anybody.
it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary at this point. I think it would be an esoteric discussion. I'm asking for the mechanics under Mass General law and the public records law that we put this survey, the redacted version, which is a public record. We put it on, that's my request. As far-
We voted.
And we voted for it.
And she's asking us to discuss.
I don't
redacted
think it's
versus
necessary.
Unredacted.
Okay, well
No.
then I'm going to make sure to notify all of the employees that the committee voted to put the survey on the website. And
Oh,
sure.
that-
Yeah,
That's fine.
Okay,
and I also think, and then I'll leave this to the committee discussion, my personal preference with this is that when it gets posted onto the website, that there is a disclaimer of sorts at the top that says the committee did not redact this.
Okay,
If I could amend my motion to, when it gets put on that it wasn't what they see as black lines was not redacted by
the
our
committee.
task.
Well,
force.
it was redacted by town council, right?
Labor council.
yes, it was.
Right.
The question I have of Carrie is, what were you asking us to discuss? Whether it was redacted or unredacted? I was trying,
I'm just concerned that you asked employees to complete this survey saying that it would be confidential and anonymous. And people did that in good faith, and you got a terrific response, and you got a lot of very good information.
yeah,
And then there was additional information that obviously is hard for everybody to read. I'm just concerned. I've heard from some people, I'm not going to say a lot of people or a number of people. Some people felt like they completed that and they were not expecting that to be a public document in any way, shape, or form. And I'm wondering if you have any concerns about that.
No, I don't. I'm absolutely positively sure in my mind, and I feel comfortable putting my head down on the pillow at night, that it was confidential. There is no way under the stars that you can connect any of the answers, redacted or unredacted, to an individual. So that, it becomes sort of
yeah,
it can become an interesting discussion over a couple of beers, but it doesn't.
we can't have more than 2 people as a meeting.
True.
Okay.
I I don't personally have an issue with that because you cannot connect an answer to a person which fulfills what we put the survey out there for and what we said in the
Yeah.
introduction to the survey that went out to all the employees. That's exactly what we said. If someone said anything further beyond that, I don't know as far as what it would be. Because we could argue, Kerry, I've had a number of employees come to me saying, why haven't we seen this yet?
Mhm.
So it is what it is. It's a public record that we
Yeah.
can hand out. I'm not suggesting we go downtown and hand it out
We're not doing that.
At the corner.
Yeah,
every
we're not doing
corner.
that.
But if somebody asks for it, it's just another, it's no different than it is another document that's on our website. That's all I'm saying.
I guess
So Bruce, are you ready to
I'm
discuss?
still thinking.
Yes, I think
Oh, I'm
if
sorry.
we have an amendment to a motion that's on the table, so.
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry. Go ahead. The amendment is,
The amendment is that when the survey is placed on our webpage, that there is a statement before it that says that the task force did not redact the document.
okay. And so how many people are in favor of having that?
Well, I'm okay with it. Yeah.
Okay,
That's all.
all right. So Bruce, are you ready to
I'm still thinking.
talk
on
about
Gary's-
your,
Still thinking on Gary's question, but we'll get off the.
and
Okay,
I just want you to know that I'm gonna have to leave at 5:15.
good, I will.
How are we doing?
We got.
So we got 15
we got
minutes.
17 minutes according to the clock.
Right?
Okay. Sections 1 and 2. You know, the bylaws to me seem to be pretty, you know, I don't see there's any reason to make any changes at the moment, would be my thought. When I go back through the 1985 document, you know, it said there should be 5 members of the select board. We've said this before. But 5 members of the personnel board. It would seem to me that the select board should get pushed to keep it at 5 people. And there's no reason it should have been at, what have we had, 2, we now at 3 or 4?
4.
4, okay,
Really?
that's a good thing.
They kind of personal.
Nice. All right.
Well, we could all do it, you know?
You know, in terms of the personnel department 85 version, you know, there's some things here, going through minutes, which I still got more to look at. There's one thing here that hits me is received from the personnel director a monthly report of all appointments to positions under the wage and salary classification, and reassignment of new employees under the plan. And I don't see where that's been presented to the personnel board. One thing I would find would be easy to do that is everybody on the board gets a org chart that tells you who's where.
Oh
And,
my, that is good.
and all the job descriptions tie into the org chart. And when you make a change, you change the job description. And see where it fits in. It tells you your full-time equivalents everywhere. To me, that would be a simple way for the personnel board to have an idea what's going on. Otherwise, it's just a lot of, I guess rhetoric would be my choice of words. I don't mean to offend anybody. If you have this, you can see who's getting moved around, who's getting put where.
And
it
the
should-
vacancies.
Yeah.
and-
And it should be an org chart to support it.
And did you say, I might have missed it, Bruce, did you say that the employee's name is on it?
I didn't say that. I think it's a good idea, but there might be some reasons that people don't want to do it. I would think it'd be a good idea.
I think it should, my opinion is it should be the employee's name and the classification rate that it falls under, not their salary. That can be-
No,
that can
not
be
the
a-
salary.
That can be a wide range from,
Yeah.
from low to
Right.
high, but just whether it's an MP3 position.
Okay,
Position, name, and classification.
so, why would we have names instead of numbers? We have 3 ACLs. I'm old
Mhm.
school here.
ACL.
I'm on,
And
still on the
I still have
ACLs.
an ACL.
You know, how, instead of saying Susie, Kathy, and Ruthie, why can't you say ACL 1 and 2 and 3?
I have a reason for that,
Thank you.
and it's an important reason in my opinion.
Uh,
With respect to reclassifications, when things get shifted around, if the personnel board sees this as a live, accurate, up-to-date document, they can look at it. If they are presented with, we are eliminating this position and hiring 2 other people, just go back to the last personnel board meeting where
okay.
that happened. Perfectly fine. But the personnel board can open this up, Bruce's chart, and say,
Well, it's actually the town's chart. Okay.
they can open it up and say, that human being has that job right now.
Okay,
Because if they're still working, and the question for the personnel board may be, where is that person going? Because if they're being reclassified,
Yeah.
they have to keep their same salary. That's in the
The
personnel bylaws.
okay.
So that if there's any shifting, what I'm suggesting is that any potential irregularities, I'll leave it at that, can be eliminated by them looking at, here's Paul McCone, he has this job, he's an MP3.
But he's at the top of the range,
Yeah, which is fine, whatever.
which is whatever, yeah.
Well,
But-
plus the rate-
But we're now eliminating Paul McCone's position. We're gonna keep him employed. Where are you putting him? Where are you reclassifying him to? So
Ah,
there's just an easy flow to keeping
Track.
track.
So if we have a riff, then
We're
there's
not in
no
charge of
Paul,
risks.
but nobody else can jump into Paul's spot because
That's
we
correct.
just ripped it and it doesn't exist.
Right.
Okay, I got it.
Or even if it's possible that someone resigns, and I think that was the case with I think it was IT, the last personnel board meeting was breaking off and having 2 new employees or whatever it was, but it was a vacancy that they've been advertising for that person. So it's a blank block on the Bruce chart that the personnel board can say there's nobody there. And that's, we're currently, looking for that person. It's just one thing that if it's kept up to date, it answers a lot of questions.
But how do you get on the Bruce chart? Because we have on the town's advertising for somebody at the BD. New post. How do you add a new post to the
The-
Bruce chart? It has
Well,
to happen before you hire, right?
Just log into the computer,
Right, just put in a new
box.
box
New
for
box.
added positions that are blank pending.
Yeah,
I just think it's a great exercise.
I like to see pictures, that's why, otherwise it
Mhm.
means nothing to me.
Right.
You're talking.
And I think it gets
Go through all the
confusing if you
jargon.
can't. We're gonna be taking, HR says we'd like to present to the personnel board, we take these actions. They can open this up and say immediately where it fits into the organization. Is there somebody currently in that spot? What are you doing with that person? Well, it answers all of the,
But it also transfers into the FinCom too, because they look
Sure.
at the Bruce chart and they say, aha, this is what it's going to cost us. No surprises or,
Well, the whole thing
Good point.
could be part of the finance committee
yeah,
package and they roll it out to everybody else. And we don't need to do something new.
one of my things on my checklist is signed off by the FinCom. That's what I'm going to propose is that
Yeah.
when there's a change made, there's a, whatever is done in moving things around, that somebody on the FinCom signs it off.
Yep.
So if the personnel board knows this is fine with the money
Yeah.
people, whether you agree to that or not, that's gonna go in my,
Now, is this something that's actually being created?
This came out of town report, maybe. I
Huh?
think. This came out of the town report,
Budget.
budget book.
The
Budget
budget
book.
Budget book, okay.
Have to go digging, nothing's easy, but
what a great place for anybody to look at to see what we have for vacancies.
Yeah, well, it's not something that has to be created. It already exists.
it actually should be, you could put your vacancy right on here.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
and we do have a rule that says vacancies have to be reported once a month, right?
it's in the bylaws.
And I can't find where that's in any of the minutes of the
No.
personnel board. Hasn't been done, from what I can tell. I could be wrong, but I can't find it. And the other
Does
thing-
anybody else remember Anna and Phoebe would come to the town clerk's desk once a month to get this information, and it better be there.
That was after they left the police station.
I just miss Anna so.
One other thing on point 8 on the personnel department, it talks about receiving appeal of employees grievances and any of that. There's nothing in the minutes where that's ever happened that I could see. I could be wrong, but I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
Which tells us another issue that people, well, as someone I talked to who was retired said, oh, you don't grieve in the town of Concord, that goes in your record. Whatever, just what people are saying.
Whoa.
And then we come over to the personnel director's job description. And from what information I have gathered, point number 1 under duties and responsibilities talks about administering and reviewing personnel changes, weekly payroll to ensure compliance with bylaws. Dun, 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 dun. Now, it's my understanding that's being done by the finance department these days, not personnel. If I'm wrong, somebody's
Oh.
free
For a
to.
while now, hasn't it, Sarah?
I think I missed that statement. Would you mind-
The payroll function is being handled by the finance department, I
Downstairs.
believe.
The finance
Which it
department-
says here under the job description, it should be handled by personnel.
I think that may be referring to the change of status forms, which is managed in the personnel
Okay,
department. of the
well, I could do
department.
some more digging to see. Number 6 talks about management reports to coordinate projects with town, develop policies and procedures for the town manager and the personnel board. I couldn't find anything of that either in the
Yeah.
minutes where that's being done.
Hmm.
And then number 10 here, administer employee health, life, dental benefits. I believe that's handled by finance,
For the retirees.
but not for the regular employees.
The regular employees are being managed by the HR department for those benefits, but the retiree portion of health and basic life potential supplements.
Okay.
Um,
Well, what we're looking for
Well,
is a
the-
report, is a document.
yeah, a
is
document. is a-
Concrete.
I mean, the other thing is, before you hire people, my understanding is you're supposed to have job descriptions. And there were 3 people that were hired, and according to the February 24th, 2020 meeting, with no job descriptions.
Yeah.
And job descriptions shouldn't be that hard.
before they're,
Before they're
voted.
approved and voted and hired on.
Yeah.
It should be job descriptions.
Yeah.
And even take a step further, it should fit in here.
Yeah.
So you can figure it out, not just, oh, get back to you. Because how are you gonna hire somebody if you don't know what they're gonna do?
Or they don't know what they're gonna do. That's a
No,
little tricky.
well, you know, whatever, next. That's about it for now. I'll have more later, but
thank you, Bruce.
I might get us started.
Thank you, sir.
Oh,
See,
you got
we
3, you
have-
got 3 minutes.
Yeah. Seeing how we have a couple of minutes, I'm gonna hold off, and I'm gonna also resend out after town meeting my recommendations, because some of them are probably gonna get voted on and changed
That,
at town meeting, yeah.
Okay.
So we should all be resending.
Huh?
We should all be resending for the next meeting, our recommendations. Paul is,
Yeah.
you are.
Yeah, well, he's doing, no,
I'm
he's
just doing my
doing,
checklist.
he's doing the
Are
checklist.
you- Okay.
It's a sample. This is a sample checklist. This
Okay.
is my checklist is, my list is of my recommendations, which everybody will have done except me. And you have just some general comments about PPPs in general.
No, because nobody wants me to meddle with it. I got that. I heard that loud and clear.
Well, the only thing I did with my bylaws is I tried to match them up with updated policies. And say, they need, they need to be both places to refer to each other.
But my question has to do with, if at our next meeting, we're doing the what's in, what's out,
Yep,
and who's responsible. Are we assigning each person who studied those components to make a pitch or make the decision? Or are we all looking at all of our homework?
I think it's, everybody looks at all of the homework.
So we have to reissue.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing that I was hoping is that people would challenge my recommendations if they didn't agree with them.
We can do that.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah,
We can do that.
Yeah.
I think-
I know you can.
Don't think you got out for it.
But what you saw was 2 pages that was done like this.
Yes,
So that you got the bylaw, you had my recommendation and my notes for each one. And I don't know,
I'm not sufficiently confident. to use
Huh?
that. I'm not sufficiently confident to use that format on my computer.
I can send you the format if that's what you're looking for.
You did, I couldn't get it to work. I said, I'm not sufficiently confident.
And I groaned, I couldn't get it to work, so I took one that was completed and I
no.
just ran a delete bar over everything we typed in, trying to make the form.
I don't have
Did
the,
you send them a Word table or an Excel table?
A word table.
Well, then.
These are cells. These are cells. Insert a cell.
I understand. I'm just telling you my level of
All right.
confidence. Please stop embarrassing. me.
Well, with 1 minute left, does anybody want to make any comments?
I'll take another, send me another one. I'll see what-
I will.
So our next meeting is May 9 here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
I just am so grateful that we could do this.
Yeah.
You
me
sure-
too.
you sure you're out of
Almost
quarantine?
all
You
the
didn't
things.
cheat
Not
this?
snowing out.
It's not snowing, nobody's sick, we can actually look at each other and argue. I love it.
And is anybody online who would like to speak up?
Oh, public comment?
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So,
Adjourn.
All those in favor, please say aye.
All right.
I, 5:15.
All right, thank you very much.
Good
Yeah.
day. Sit down for a while.
Ordinarily, I would go late.